Welcome to the DeFi Standard. This is Patty XRP with another installment of our Polkadot Parachain series. And with that, we are going to get into Astar Network, which is formerly known as Plasm. And they are aiming to be the scalable solution for a multi-chain Polkadot dApp hub. And this will include many different solutions, which we'll get into with this. To start off, I'll say this is probably not the easiest project to understand since it has to do with a lot of technical components. And there's some things that haven't been officially decided as far as token supply into the future, but we'll kind of get into all of that as we go along. So to start off here, we're going to talk about why somebody would want to build dApp, so decentralized applications on top of the Astar network. So first off, they have something called XVM, which is a cross virtual machine, and that is going to support the Ethereum virtual machine and WebAssembly smart contract interoperability, along with XCMP, which is cross-chain messaging protocol for all of the parachains connected to the Polkadot relay chain. So this means that the smart contracts on Astar are going to be composable with smart contracts on other parachains, and also EVM-based smart contracts and WebAssembly-based smart contracts will also be interoperable with one another within the Astar parachain network. And going forward, it's going to have full Ethereum compatibility. And they say it's as easy as changing the RPC URL for Ethereum projects to move over. And additionally, all the dev tools that developers are used to on Ethereum are supported. So this may be like Truffle, Hardhat, Remix, some of those ones. Going forward, they also have something which I think this really sets it apart from the other parachain projects. They all have their own little thing they're doing that may be a little different, while, in aggregate, they kind of, some of them are looking similar. So with this, they're introducing something called Dap Staking. And this means that developers can earn block rewards for building and maintaining smart contracts on the Astar network. So they'll have people that are operators that can kind of, make sure things are running smoothly with the smart contracts and dApps. And they can even be, owners over that. And they will also have something called operator trading, which is going to create a market for the buying and selling of smart contracts and dApps. So you can think of maybe you're just a solo developer and you're not looking to build an entire project, but you know how to more efficiently put together some of these smart contracts or dApps, or do it in a really well way that people will pay you to do that. So that's really cool that they're implementing that as well. So I'd say the Dap staking and then the operator trading of smart contracts and dApps is like the two most unique things with this project. And then additionally, they really focus on scalability. So they're going to offer layer 1 and layer 2 solutions, like the optimistic virtual machine, Plasma, which was created by Vitalik Buterin, and then also zero knowledge rollups. And so with this, you kind of may be saying, oh, I thought the point of Polkadot was to shard out, the transactions and consensus and everything in parallel so that it, processes and they can have more, transactions going through the network and scale. However, Astar's view on this is if, you're going to have projects from Ethereum port over to Polkadot or become multi-chain in the future, that a lot of these Ethereum projects are already implementing layer 2 solutions. So it makes sense to provide those so that these projects will move over and they don't have to do, a bunch of retooling of their project in order to make the move over to Astar or Polkadot. And so with that, kind of explaining those three main solutions they're going to have. So Plasma uses off-chain aggregators to store the entire Merkle tree of transactions. And so this is kind of like, the series of data that tells you where everything's coming from. And what they do is they create a Merkle root ID that's stored on chain that enables you to understand what happened and reconfigure the state of these transactions being put together off chain by aggregators. And so with that, we also have the optimistic virtual machine, which is looking like it could be a possible layer 2 unifier for all layer 2 solutions. and can include the Lightning Network as well. So this is something that potentially many layer 2 solutions will fall under and enable them to be composable with each other. And then lastly, ZK rollups. So that comes from like zero knowledge proofs, are the aggregation of transactions off chain through the use of smart contracts and aims to deliver the minimal amount of data to reconstruct previous states on chain. And the settlement on chain happens a little after the fact, but it allows you to do things off chain so that you can scale the Ethereum blockchain to a higher transaction level. And so they're implementing those three solutions mainly to incentivize Ethereum developers to come and work on the Astar network. And so going into this further, they also have an interesting setup for community rewards. So 50% of it will go to validators, which are called collators within the Polkadot ecosystem. They're the ones that create the blocks on the Astar network to send to the Polkadot relay chain validators so that that can be verified and added to the state of the blockchain in the consensus process. And then additionally, 25% of the rewards will go to smart contract and dApp developers. So, that's a great way to incentivize, some of these developers out there to come and build on Astar, knowing that they're going to get paid right off the bat just for developing on the network before, their dApp takes off or anything like that. And then lastly, 25% will go to token holders of their native asset. So they don't know like what exactly it's going to be called at this point since they did a rebranding. It may be like AST is the ticker or something like that. It'll have to do with Astar. And just so people know, they did launch a parachain on Kusama in the first set of 5 parachain loan offerings there. They got the 3rd slot, and that project is called the Shiden Network. So just so you guys are aware, if you see those kind of commingling out there, it's just the canary version of the Astar network. And with that, the token holders basically of that native asset, they'll receive 25% of the rewards coming out through inflation. And that will be for staking with the collators or validators. And then also they can nominate some of these dApp developers and stake with their smart contracts and dApps to earn some of the reward as well. So, if you have a dApp that's really good or a smart contract, then you'll have more stake with it and potentially more rewards coming to you. And then as far as consensus, they're going to start out as a proof of authority that uses a limited set of community selected validators. And then over time, we'll shift to nominated proof of stake, just like every other parachain, with collators and nominators for staking rewards. And then moving down into their tokenomics section. So they kind of introduced something really interesting from a project called Edgeware. They created something called a lock drop. And this is honestly really similar to how the parachain loan offerings act with bonding dot behind them. So with this, people will lock tokens in a smart contract for a given time period to receive the native token. And that would be like the Astar token. And then the locked tokens are returned once the time period has concluded. So with this, users face an opportunity cost, which infers value on the tokens they are receiving, similar to PLOs. So like they did some lock drops for Ethereum, and the first 2 aggregated over 150,000, Ether tokens. And so with that, people are locking their Ether tokens away for a period of time to get the native asset of Astar. And, with that, they could be using that Ether token to do something else with it to earn yield in another way. They could sell it if the price goes up. So those are all opportunity costs because there are other, things they could have done with that Ether token. And because they're locking it up, they're hoping that that infers value through opportunity costs, which I think is an interesting way to kind of look at it. And then additionally, since they've had 2 of these lock drops for the Ethereum token already, the next lock drops will be performed via the parachain loan offering process and have higher rewards for dot bonders as a sign of good faith to the Polkadot community, since they are going to be a parachain. And then just to kind of get into what the Astar native token is going to be used for. So like we said earlier, dApp and collator staking, transaction fees, governance, they'll have a DAO, And then also, if you're going to use layer 2 solutions, developers doing that will have to make a deposit down to the L1 smart contract to build their layer 2 solutions on top. And then additionally, they're going to have an adaptable inflation model to deliver value where it is underrepresented between collators, dApps, and smart contracts. And so with this, the total supply before inflation is not going to be set at the genesis of the network, as there'll be future lock drops after they secure their parachain slot. And so with that, what the total amount of tokens and things like that is going to be up in the air. To be honest, I looked through like their white paper to see how they were doing that, and the math was pretty complicated, and I didn't really feel good about breaking that down. So I'm hoping they come out with a blog or something to kind of make it a little easier, but it was kind of beyond my level of comprehension there. So I don't really have a great answer on what the inflation rate will look like and what are some possible numbers for the total token supply. Which isn't the greatest. I kind of would like to know those things prior. But one of the reasons they're doing that is they don't want people at the very beginning, if they get into the first lock drop, to get like majority of the tokens, and they'd rather have a fair token distribution over time. So that's kind of why they're implementing it in that way. And so with that, let's kind of talk about they have a lot of builders and grants programs, and what they're offering to people that are going to come and develop on Astar is early stage project grants. They'll have technical support. So if people are running into tech issues as far as implementing smart contracts, building them, things like that, they can talk with Staking Technologies, which is the company behind the Astar Network. And then additionally, they'll have some marketing support. So, linking you up with marketers out there, joint announcements, partnerships, things of that nature. And then also they have a vast connection with investors and ecosystem supporters. And so with that, I took some screenshots from their docs page, and we'll kind of go through these one at a time. It'll just kind of give you some visuals of what we talked about there at the beginning. So let's start off with the Astar architecture. Like I said earlier, it was called Plasm Network, and that's because they were really focusing on using Plasma that was developed by Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin, and one other person in the past. And if we can look at this here, basically they break it up into layer 1, layer 2. They have an adapter, also called like a daemon in some instances, and this is what allows you to communicate between layer 1 and layer 2. So they'll have their L2 implementation of Plasma, as well as their layer 1 implementation, and they kind of break up how the smart contracts interact with them in order to kind of like allow it to be more scalable and less prone to breaking, as far as if you pile everything together in one module. So that's kind of what the architecture is going to look like here. And then moving on to the next part, we can talk about what Plasma architecture looks like. So we talked earlier about they use this Merkle root, which is like how you can tell all the state changes, the hashes, and all that stuff. So with this, it compiles all this data into a Merkle root and then submits that to the blockchain so that it can be recorded there. And that's enough information to go back and verify state changes and things like that. And so while these aggregators are doing it off chain, there's the ability for actors operating on chain to say that this is false and dispute it. So that's good to know as well. And then if we look at the optimistic virtual machine, that architecture, so they'll have their Plasma module here, and it will call on the OVM module. And then they'll also have their contracts module. So these are going to all work in conjunction with each other and be able to communicate out to the L1 adapter. I kind of liken this to, I want to say they're called microservices in like programming and development, where you don't have everything connected together. You kind of separate things into different modules, and then they can talk to each other. And this kind of can reduce the complexity of building one giant application if you break it down into a couple different components. And then moving forward from here, let's talk about what this lock drop looks like. So they originally were calling their tokens PLM after Plasm, but obviously it's changed to Astar. So if you were participating in the lock drop when they had Ethereum tokens, you would lock those assets for X amount of days. They have their lock drop smart contract, which was audited by QuantStamp that would hold it. And then after that time period, you get all those assets back. But also during the waiting period before you can get your Ethereum back, they will eventually deliver you some of these. Well, I guess it'll be the Astar native token now, or whatever they end up calling it. And then moving forward here, we can kind of talk about the Astar community rewards. So you can see token holders here. They're able to nominate with the collators or validators and also nominate some of these community contributors, which are going to be the developers creating smart contracts and dApps. And then we'll see some of the block reward going to the collators and validators. And then moving on to, let's see, token distribution. This is what we want. So with the token distribution, so existing users, and those are mainly lock drop participants. So about, the total amount of people that submitted 150,000 ETH, that would be who's going to get 30% of the supply. Another 30% is going to be for parachain auctions, roughly. And then they'll have a parachain auction reserve. And this is going to be used in case they need more DOT in the future for when their first parachain slot period runs out after 2 years. And this is, starts once they secure a parachain slot on Polkadot when that stuff goes live. They also have 10% save for protocol development and grants. They'll have 5% for the on-chain DAO, 5% for marketing, 10% going to institutional investors, and 5% to the team. So I really like this. They got about 60% of the tokens are going to be to community members that are supporting the project by bonding or locking up some of their DOT tokens or Ethereum tokens in the instance of this lock drop. And then moving on a little further here, we can see, so this is from a new blog they put out where they're going to really focus on bridges. And with this, you can see like Definity, Solana, Avalanche. I think that's supposed to be Ethereum there. They kind of changed the colors on me. Polkadot, they'll connect to Cosmos, Binance Smart Chain. So they're really looking to have a bunch of bridges out to all the other smart contract blockchains. And so they can be interoperable with Polkadot. And then they'll have their parachain slot connection with the Polkadot relay chain so that all those can interact with each other, as well as XCMP, which allows you to transfer between different parachains on Polkadot. So I do like this, that they're really looking to tackle bridging to many different blockchains. I think that's just going to open up avenues for more value to come in if, what's being built there is successful and individuals want to put value there and use it. And then lastly, we'll just talk about the roadmap before we wrap this one up. So with that, in 2021 of Q3, which we're in right now, they're going to have Ethereum Virtual Machine and WebAssembly smart contract support. They'll have their first Astar portal, and they'll have Dap Staking support. So this is some stuff that's going on Shiden right now since it's on the Kusama network. Once they get their Polkadot parachain projected in Q4 of this year, they'll have the Ethereum bridge come out, Binance Smart Chain bridge. They'll have their Cosmos bridge, and they will migrate to nominated proof of stake from proof of authority. And then moving on further into next year in the first quarter, they'll have a listing, Dap Staking version 2, Solana bridge, Definity bridge, Avalanche bridge, and cross-chain message passing. And then moving further into 2022, they'll have their layer 2 rollup solutions live. On-chain governance will take effect, and they'll upgrade their portal to version 2. And then in the third quarter of next year, they will implement the DAO. And for the most part, this will be a lot of their solutions rolled out at this point from their primary roadmap, and it'll be finished up from there. So with that, that's everything we're going to cover today on the Astar Network. It definitely is interesting. I mean, I think the Dap staking and also the operator trading, so being able to sell and buy smart contracts, are some really interesting things that I don't see done in a lot of places. So I'd say that's what makes it stand out in the Polkadot ecosystem, as well as them providing some of these layer 2 solutions, which may be forgotten on Polkadot as they're doing the sharding with the parachains in order to scale the blockchain. But, that is something that can help bring projects over if they're used to using layer 2. And who knows, maybe Polkadot gets to a place where layer 2 starts making sense. You never know what the future holds. I mean, we just saw with Solana having issues that, this can happen to any blockchain. And until you get to the threshold where it starts to break down, you don't really know what that threshold is. So with that, this is the DeFi standard. I'm Patty XRP, and we'll be back with a more parachain reviews in the future. See you guys.